Hello everyone, I am Nu-Trix and today we're talking about the RodeCaster Pro. It is defining a new way to offer a good quality, high-end, affordable mixer for everybody. Of course, this is made for podcasters. It is for content creator. More aimed at recording voice. You've got 4 inputs to plug microphones. It's not aimed for mixing music, but you could in a way. But I'm going to talk about how to set it up to have the best possible sound without any other question. Keep in mind that it is really well thought, and I think a lot of other companies will get inspired by this to create something as efficient and easy to use. I mean, this is something that anybody can just pick up and rapidly have something that sounds good, and they can actually release something, which is probably the biggest problem when you do record content, is that you might not be sure of the quality you're going to get. And you might not be sure how to do it. And having a console, an interface, a software, it becomes kind of a lot of things to manage. So I'm going to show you how to set it up to have good quality sound and get the most out of it. Okay? First thing, before we actually go into talking about the RodeCaster Pro, let's first go back and remember that there's something that we say about sound all the time, which is garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have a good recording, anything you do with it will not make it a lot better. So you're better off recording in a space where you have control over the sound, so a room that is closed to the rest of the environment, having acoustics are not so bad, and having microphones that are close mic'd and not so sensitive so that they don't pick up everything. So you have microphone on stands like the one I have right now, which is a Shure. There's a bunch, of course, from Rhodes. There's a good one. There you also have lavalier you can have. In some of my videos, you see me with the lavalier. I used to use that all the time before. It doesn't really matter what you have, but you need the microphone that is capturing around the voice of the person. If you don't have any microphone and you want to buy one with the RodeCaster Pro, look at the Rode microphone. You'll see in the menus I'll show you, there's already presets for these microphones. So it's going to be easier for you to just set it up. Okay, so with that being said, let's actually bring the camera closer so you see what I'm doing. You have the screen. Go closer here. You have that screen here. And everything is touch sensitive, so you can actually go in and type what you want and really quickly maneuver inside it. First microphone here, actually the one, which is kind of purple pinkish, depending on how you look at it. If you go back to the main menu, you have the window here. You see the volume here. You can just like bring the volume up and down, okay? If you click on the gear, you have access to the parameters. So what you have channels. You have all your channels. Either you press right here and you have channel 1, all the information, or you go back 1, and then you've got all of these you can select. Now keep in mind you've got channel 1, 2, 3, 4. You kind of change the color. I thought you could, but you cannot. USB, so it's a playback, could be a playback from a computer or from an iPad or iPhone. So you could play back music with that. You could even have a smartphone that is connected here, but actually what you have is a 1/8 of an inch connected at the back. And you have Bluetooth also thought to be used for iPhone or Android. And you can actually do telephone calls with that. But then there's something interesting. There is something called a mix minus, which is something you have in radio. You can actually send the mix minus them talking. So they don't have a feedback when they talk to you, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so what we'll do now, I'm going to actually use the microphone, this one connected into that mixer. So you actually hear the internal sound of the mixer. And I'm going to show you each of the parameters to activate for the microphone. And we're going to listen to the sound that it does. Right now, I've got the same microphone I used just earlier that you heard. It was actually using the digital interface straight into the iPad. Right now, I'm going through the microphone input, and it's not a Rode microphone, it's a Shure microphone. So instead of going into the presets, I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on the first one. I'm going to go back one window at the back. And the first thing you go microphone, and you can select a choice. I mean, I selected dynamic, which is here. Of course, if you've got a Rode microphone, you can select that one. It's going to right away do some of the choices for you. It's going to be done. Now you're going to have the information. We are going to go through all of the choices of whatever you can do with sound in this case. And I'll show you in two different windows because you have it on the board itself. So if I go back one here and I go audio processing, I've got these choices. Now I can also have exactly the same thing on the computer using the RodeCaster Pro app, and I see that screen. So I actually see the input coming in, I see the information on my screen, and right now I can actually go in and select these things and see, you know, how does it work. Right now I don't want to have anything in it, so all of the options are off. So you hear the straight signal of the microphone. Now, first thing you should do is you go back here and you go into microphone, actually a level first. And in the level, you try to figure out a place where your average signal is always inside that little two lines of green, you know. So I'm going to bring that up a little bit. This is basically bringing up the gain. So if I talk like that, it's actually, you want to get the best result for it. So now it's actually, right away, it's a little bit cleaner because I get more of my voice and it's clean. And this is just like the normal sound of my voice using that microphone. So I don't need phantom power because this is not a phantom power microphone. But if you would need one, so you might have to set up your stuff and then turn that on. And it's one phantom power per channel, well, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can have 4 different microphones. Some of them might be using phantom power if needed. So I'm going to go back, and then I'm going to go into audio processing. So audio processing, let's go through all of it. Yeah, first one is the high pass filter. Now, a high pass filter is a filter that let only the high frequency pass, or it's also called a low cut. Basically, the goal of it is to get rid of the rumble. Low frequencies that a microphone picks up and that we don't hear or we don't notice because as human we just filter that out. One example would be a rumble from, I don't know, a heating system, a ventilation system. That is a rumble in the house, you know, but you don't necessarily hear it because you get used to it. Or it could be a rumble from a street noises, the cars, the trucks outside. That might not be just so loud, but you might just be hear, and this, your microphone might pick it up. Also, something that happens often is all the bass sounds that are vibration coming off a table. Somebody might be touching the desk, and your microphone might be on a stand that is on the desk. So you would like to first of all isolate it from. It could be just put a cloth under your stand, between the stand and the table, so you have less of the vibration, but also the rumble could be cut here, and you have a frequency. So you can go from 200 down to, to 20, which is almost nothing. So, and you also have it on screen. So same thing here, I can just move it on screen, and it changes it because it's connected by USB to my computer. So same software. So let's keep it at, I don't know, 80. I get nothing under 80. Okay, first. Now, next one, I'll go to noise gate. I'm going to go back and say noise gate. Noise gate is basically, you want the gate to open when your signal goes over the noise. And when you don't talk or you don't have any sound you want to record, when that stops, you want the gate to close. So you want the threshold, the something you have here, the threshold, to be under your under your voice volume, but higher than the background noise. So background noise could be, let's say I'm going to turn it on right now. It could be anything. If I bring that little higher, you see, if I really have to talk loud for it to turn on. If not, it really wants to stop the signal. So I can do it just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if the volume is under a certain level, it's going to close it. So the logic would be to say, well, I want to create I want to really have a reaction that is just under the voice that I'm talking, actually just over the background noise. So if the background noise is my computer noise, I can just bring it down, let's say here, and I can talk naturally. And when I don't talk, you don't hear the background noise of my computer. But when I talk loud enough that it covers up the sound of the background noise. So it's kind of a good deal. So, of course, this will have to be adapted every time you change environment. But if you're always recording in the same room, like in my case, I'm always in this room, then I don't have to play with it. I just set it up once for this microphone with that voice, and I'm good to go. Next one, we go to the de-esser. De-esser is all these sibilants, all these sounds that makes it harsh when you hear it. So if I turn it on and it goes sibilants, if I talk sibilants, see, it cuts some of it right away. So it's basically a threshold. It's like a compressor if you want, with an EQ. And you can select the frequency. So depending on where the is happening, it's not the same for everybody, depending on your mouth and how you talk and all that stuff. So you can play that until you find the right place. So you can just use the default value and just play with the frequency if you need it. And that's it. It's going to get rid of the that are harsh, too loud, and they jump out at you. And also it depends on the microphone you're using, because some of them will be more sensitive to some of the frequencies. Wow, let's go to the compressor. So next one, the compressor is, that one is really interesting. If you look at the screen itself, there's information about where your signal is. So you see your sound coming in, you see the threshold for the compression, you see how much you're going to compress. You can go really, if I turn it on, so now you hear the compression. Hello, how you doing? So this is the sound of my voice using compression. That's too much of it. It's just, but at the same time, this combined with the noise gate, it is interesting, because if I go back to the noise gate and bring that down and go back to the compressor, you have this kind of places where it doesn't happen. So you can actually bring the gain up. You can really have a release that is slower. You can change the ratio. You can change the threshold where it starts to actually compress. You can bring the gain down. You can say, well, I want a threshold just when it's too loud. Or you can have something almost like a late limiter, like a 10 to 1, you're almost in limiter mode. So the goal here is to have something that sounds radio-like. This is actually pretty nice because I get a place where you see where I talk here. I can actually bring it down a little bit here. I've got this section. This is usually where I am. So it's going to compress a signal. And you see how much it's compressing at the top here. And if I want it to be louder, I can actually bring that up. But it becomes too loud. So let's say a couple of dBs, because I already positioned it where I want it to. So if you turn it off now, you see my voice sounds different. It doesn't sound as loud and as stable as I move around. Whereas this one here is really have more of a radio tone right now. Just bring that down. Some of the right there. How does that sound? Is that too much? This is actually pretty good. I think it's actually interesting to have that sound. So now, what do I have here? I'm going to bring that volume up. Okay. Is that better? I think it is. So now that I have some compression happening on my voice, I've got this kind of more of a radio tone to it. The APHEX, this one here, if I go back here and go APHEX. APHEX was a company making, actually it's still a company. They made the Aural exciter and the Big Bottom. It's just like, where do you get these names, guys? That box was just interesting because an exciter will enhance the high frequencies, make them more alive. And the big bottom, well, basically plays with the bass to have more of the bassy sound. So if you turn on just the exciter, okay, the exciter, you would have this. If you listen to the high frequencies, it's a little bit more, in this case, I find it harsh, but it's a question of where, you want to have more harmonics in the high frequencies, you want it to be subtle, you want it to be where the frequency is going to be enhanced. So it's kind of a decision you have to take until you find one that sounds good for your voice, or you don't use it at all. If you don't use it, well, you've got to go back to that signal. I've got that sound, which is, in my case, I'm used to that sound, so I find it really interesting. But if you're not used to your sound and you're looking to find something, so maybe this is too nasal for me, how do you talk? Is that better? Less harmonics in my case. And where do you have something? Hey, come on. This might be like that. And also, can you just go back to more of this? And so I've got some high frequencies. Like this, it becomes really too annoying. But if I got something like that, I think it's okay for my voice. So you have to play with it. The next one is still, it's another window. We're still with the APHEX effects. This one's called Big Bottom. So now if we turn this on, now we're going to have a more bass, is like an EQ for the bass. So if you really want to sound like a radio talk show host, that's what you get. So I've got this, a lot of bass. So now the Aural exciter has some logic to it, because if I have more bass, I'm going to also have to enhance the high frequencies, because it's just going to become bassy. So if I turn off just quickly the Aural exciter, I've got this. It's a little more, not noisy, but more muffled in a way. If I turn back the Aural exciter, even if it's not really loud, I have more presence in high frequencies also. So if you look at the big bottom, is basically there's a frequency where you want to add more bass. Basically, in this case, it was 100. Let's keep it at that place. You have this value here, the drive, how much you want to actually drive it up. So it's, or you don't want too much. So you're kind of boosting the bass frequencies here. You're playing with it. And the mix is how much you want to go from the original sound to the one with the effects. So if you play something that is a good mix between the two of them, then you've got this new radio voice of Nu-Trix, the synth guy. This is it. This is really all you have to do to create that really cool radio tone to it. If you don't want it, again, you can turn off everything and have the original sound of the microphone. And that's it. I actually do most of the processing you saw here. I do most of it in post-production. I do edit my audio track after in post-production. And I have a suite of effects that I put in on my voice to do compression, limiting, some of the EQ to boost some frequencies, and I get to a result that I like. But honestly, if I wanted to save some time, or if I'm doing a podcast, a live setup, then this actually gives you something that is close, not to say sometimes exactly what you want, and it's more like a radio talk show. So it's really interesting. So it's a question of setting it up until you like it, and then you save it and you have your process for your voice, for your microphone. So now the next thing you have, if we go back here, is the option of recording. Now, if you want to record this, is very simple. You press record here. But for recording here, you need to have an internal SD card in it. So the SD card, if you put it in, you can format, you can use it. This one is already formatted. Get brightness, headphones. Oh, keep in mind, you've got 4 different mix of headphones. So this is interesting. But what I want to talk to you is about this thing, the Multitrack. There's many ways to record in here. If you press record, you're going to record internally on the SD card, and you can turn on the micro SD card Multitrack. So it means that on the multi-card, you're going to have multiple tracks recorded straight into it, which is pretty interesting. Right now, the way I record straight into the computer as a stereo track. So I've got that signal in the computer in stereo by USB. But I could also press record here, and at the same time, I'm recording in the device a multi-track. So each track has its own space. So it means that later on, I can still tweak it again if I want to, which is pretty awesome. You know, it's so, but if you want to work like it's just a straight, like a radio show, you could just leave it at stereo. That's it. But if you want to have that option of editing later on if needed, you could have the multi-track mode. I'm going to press stop for now. If I go back here, you see, let's say back here, audio, you've got the multi-track, you've got the USB multi-track also if you want. Oh, I just stopped my recording. Not a problem. By doing that, I stopped my recording on the computer because it went from stereo to multi-track, stopped it. You can bypass audio processing. You can do post-fader or pre-fader. So it's going to be using it or not. If you go back, you've got processing. So do you want to mix minus by USB? So sending back to USB the mix minus the USB device itself. So let's say you're sending a playback from the computer into this as a, I don't know, intro song, whatever it is, and you can actually save it, send it back without it being recorded back into the computer. So that would be the mix minus. So you've got a couple of options here, which is really cool. The next step is actually this section here, the effects. So you can trigger, you know, songs, laughs, whatever sound you want to record. And to set them up, you actually can go in the window here into this little thing here and select the different sound on the different pads, or you can do it in the computer using the same logic here. You can click on it and select what you want, load your sound. So it could be a whole song, it could be the intro, it could be a loop, it could be just something you trigger as clapping, or something that you keep on your finger on. So there's different options, and it stays in the machine. So if it's something you always use, it's simple, it's there. It's always the same note. And then you've got many pages, many banks. You got 3 banks. So if you get 3 different shows, you could have 3 different setup to start your processing. That's it. Then you just record, and then you edit, and it's done. So super easy, super simple, super efficient. It's really well thought of. I hope this is actually useful to set up and run with it really quickly. If you have any questions, put them below. Have fun. See you soon. Cheers.